Oh, much better. Yep, I've got a good. Hello everyone, welcome back to Maverick Mods. Well, last week we hit a major milestone, got the new roof on the car. This week, gonna work on continuing getting the quarters locked in, and main focus for today is getting the new trunk floor in the car and welded in. So, here we go. With the roof locked in, I can get back to getting the rest of the quarters completely locked in and get the tail panel fixed. So what I can do, I can work my way down. First thing, I can work my way down to this point here on the quarters. At that point, then I'll switch over to the interface between the tail panel and the quarters. So I can just work my way down here. I'm going to alternate side to side to keep the heat buildup from getting too bad. Judicious use of any kind of clamp you can makes a huge difference. It really does help. Once in a while, a little body hammer just to make sure everything's flat. So, here we go. Okay, my hammer. Nope. Alright, I'm going to use a self-tapper here just to pull that metal a little bit closer. And I found my magnetic tip. So, that'll work. Okay, I'm just going to work side to side, work my way down, keep the heat build up, use a little tippy tap with a hammer once in a while, use of a self-tapper once in a while if necessary, just to pull the metal close, and I'll work my way all the way down to here. Once in a while, you're going to run across a situation like this. So right here in the corner, I've got original sheet metal, I've got the new quarter, but there I just can't make the gap here. In other words, this piece here is just a little bit too narrow to make that work. So what I'm going to do, again, nothing unusual, easy fix. I'm going to take and I'm going to slice this piece down to about right here and do what's called a pie cut. Actually, kind of a reverse pie cut. I'm going to slice it here. I may have to fill with a piece of sheet metal in here just a little bit. So here we go. Alright, with my cut made, let's see if we can't move that metal into shape and into place with a couple of clamps. Let's try that there. Okay, hit that with a welder real quick. I'll just work my way around. All right, next up, I'm gonna separate, stand by. With that first cut I made, I had to make an additional cut here because if I'd have just gone on the first cut and then moved this piece over, it would have caused a lot of stress and probably a bend in this area here that I wouldn't want. So this cut just allowed me to kind of angle this piece up a little bit. I've still got a good radius here. I'm going to tack in place right here to hold it. Then I'll work my way around into the channel. Okay. Now, all right, so I'm just going to use a hammer and dolly right in this area here. Try and make everything fit just a little bit better. Okay, clamp here or there, that'll make it work. Switch to a little smaller clamp. There we go. All right, let's hit that spot. Let's work on this angle here just a little bit. Okay, once I get the trunk gutter in, then that'll lock that in. Okay, before I go too much farther, I fixed my little boo-boo here. I'm going to take the trunk gutter that I saved from before. I'm just going to test fit it. In here, right up in this area here. I've got a good fit. Looks good, feels good. I think I can get that back in place without too much trouble. Okay. All right, next I'm going to work on closing this gap. Last thing I need to do on this particular corner here is close up this gap. Now I'm about to do something that a few guys are just going to howl and protest. This portion of this gap is right on the gray area of should I cut a piece to fit in here. It's really gray, but I am just going to stitch weld right along here and stitch weld my way up and see if I can't just fill that in with weld. Let the howls of protest begin. We're going to try it, see if it works. Stick with me. Here we go. And one of the things I am going to do to keep from warping the metal too much, I'm going to do 2 or 3, maybe 4 tacks along the area. Let it cool, hit it with the body hammer once we try to straighten it out. And so this is going to take a while. All right, let's let that cool for a minute, and I'll keep working on it. Round 2. Well, that kind of blew through that. All right, we'll let that cool for a minute. Can press on. And just so everybody knows, this is strictly at this point cosmetic. This is just to satisfy my OCD. Check the fit of the trunk gutter again, make sure nothing has moved. Still looks good. I'm gonna hit one tiny little spot and call this good. Okay, I'm going to call that a successful trial. I think that worked out pretty good. Hit this with some etching primer and we'll press on, do the other side. Okay, we got both sides done there. Next, we'll move with more aligning the tail panel. I know it's been a while since we visited the truck pan, but now that the roof's on, now this final alignment of the tail panel, it's time to get the truck pan in and ready. So, I've got all the rot cut out. What I need to do now is I need to scribe where I need to cut the truck pan itself. I'm going to sneak up on this, but these lines here should at least get me started. Alright, I'll pull this guy out, we'll take a look, we'll cut some metal off and go through the process of slowly fitting the trunk pan in place. So the first part of fitting this trunk pan is this part of the pan itself is the equivalent of this part of the old trunk floor. So these are going to wind up being basically very close together, or when I say close together, this edge here is going to match, it's not going to overlap. So that'll actually make the entire trunk pan slide back by the width of the sheet metal, which will affect my gaps up front. So I figure what the heck, I've got to have a little bit of a gap. So I'm going to try the body saw. May not work, it might, we'll see. That's as far as I can take that one. See, it actually slid over a little bit more, which I wanted it to do anyway. But it needs to come back a little bit this way. So about right there, that's actually pretty close. All right, let me try the other side. The other side is, well, the other side's pretty much there. I just need to, yeah, okay, the other side's there. So, So about number 85, maybe a 185 on the list of 1,000 things to do to get everything to fit back here. is this quarter panel to tail light panel filler piece that I rescued previously. Slides up in here, and all it does is just fill in the gap basically. It ties the lip of the quarter panel to the lip of the tail panel. So I've got it fitting fairly well. Looks pretty good here. Fits pretty good, although the lip on the quarter needs to come in just a little bit. Let me make sure I'm kind of where I need to be. That's pretty good. Needs to go a little bit more. I'm actually to the point where I could probably shoot some sheet metal screws through here. In fact, I think I'll do that just to hold this in place. Hey, that did work. And I didn't shoot it through the top of the quarter. Score. That's pretty close. I think that's close enough that we can try a test fit. So as I'm in kind of the final fitting stage of getting this tail panel and quarters to align before I lock everything in, the little fiberglass piece right here, I do need to do a little bit of massaging kind of right here in this area. Just work on the metal kind of behind it here, just so that thing will slide in just a little bit better. So I'll get that done and we'll come right back. Okay. All right, so both sides match up pretty good, and let's try a fit again. All right, a little bit of adjustment here and there. Let's do a test fit again. Where the holes that are. All right, let's see how we're doing here. Feels pretty good here. Oh, much better. Yep, I've got a good, nice tight gap. The panel is shaped a little bit weird. I might have to do a little bit on the quarter. But that's where it needs to be, and the other side is where it needs to be also. So I'm going to mount this panel temporarily, just like everything else. Put it where it needs to be. Then we'll test fit the tail lights best we can. I don't know if I can get them in with the self tappers, but we'll test fit the tail lights. Okay, quick test fit of the tail light. Let's see how we're doing here. Good. I've got wiggle room. Gaps look good. If anything, I might be able to take this gap a little bit right there. Let's see if I can. I'll work on that in a minute. Okay, yeah, I've got a pretty good decent there. Yeah, okay. I can take a little bit right there. But that looks good. That side looks good. I'll do a final test fit of the bumper. And if I'm happy with that, then I'm going to lock the taillight panel in place. Sheet metal screws, and then I'll pull it all back off to sandblast the EDC coating off and put some epoxy primer on it. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with this. I'm going to lock the tail panel in with some sheet metal screws. That way I've got some alignment holes, and then it all comes back apart again. With the taillight panel and the trunk pan epoxy primered, I can get them put back in, final alignment done on them, get them screwed in place, and start prepping them for permanent installation. So here we go. So I'm not really looking at this point to completely set everything back in like I had it before, but I've got some alignment screw holes that I pre-made, which I should be able to line up with just by the bumper brackets. And that should, let me get you up in here. There we go. There we go. That should get me pretty much where I need to be for the trunk pan. And that's just for the sandwich between the taillight panel, the inner valence, and the trunk pan itself. And put those other two in too, just to say I did. Give it a little bit more rigidity. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go underneath and start screwing the trunk panel to the, what were those things? The fuel tank brackets. And I'll check my alignment as I go. Alright, so underneath, here's what I'm going to do. It's going to be a little bit easier, basically without me laying on my back, to drill some pilot holes through the trunk pan, and then I'm going to screw them from the top down. Just makes it a little bit easier to get to. The welding, plug welds are going to be from the top down anyway. Doesn't really matter that much, but it makes it just a little bit easier to get to the actual, I'm not pushing against a loose trunk pan when I'm trying to get that screw to go through there. So I'll do a few pilot holes in the bottom, screw it down, and kind of work my way down the brace here. So I'm going to hit the ones closest. And where my pilot hole is, I can come in from the top side and put in the sheet metal screws. So from here, I'll just work my way down those braces until I get enough sheet metal screws in that I'm satisfied that I can plug weld it in. So cue the music. So here we are. Both of the braces are secured to the trunk pan with sheet metal screws. It's more sheet metal screws than I normally would use, but all of these holes need to be plug welded anyway, so what the heck. I am going to have at least 2 more plug welds I need to come through here, but I can't get to them underneath, so I'll just mark those and drill them out from top side. So now trunk pan comes back out. I'll drill those holes, drill the rest of the holes where the sheet metal screws are, prep all the edges, grind off all of the epoxy primer that's going to come in contact for the weld, and otherwise prep everything and get it ready for welding in the trunk pan. Okay, everything I just put in comes right back out. I'm going to shake out all the metal shavings. We'll just get those out in the driveway so I can pick them up in a tire. With the weld-through primer dry, let's get the trunk pan in. Should be for the last time. Everything lined up, holes lined up. Let's get our sheet metal screws back in. I'll start with the 4 that I left the proper size, just for alignment purposes. Okay, the rest of the holes, even though I drilled them oversized, with these holes lined up, I should keep my alignment everywhere I need to. So I can go ahead and crank those down. I can come back here one at a time, pull the screws out, plug weld the trunk pan to the braces underneath. Then I can start hitting the perimeter. The one thing I'm going to leave until the tail panel is in place is this section right back here. I can get the bottom because I'll have to get that before the trunk pan goes in, but I want to hold off because this piece, and the taillight panel all sandwiched together. I don't want to move this piece because it may have to move a little bit to keep from distorting the tail panel, if that made any sense. So next up, let's hit the trunk floor with some plug welds. Alright, time for a little welding. The first couple of these I might have to do a little bit of pressure just to get a clamping force down on the between the brace and the trunk. This one looks pretty good. We'll do this one next. All right, so we're still working on the trunk pan, getting the last of the edges here stitch welded in. I've got down to here, and basically I had to start from the front, work my way back. So as I get down closer to here, because this panel is so big and just a lot of surface area here to deal with, it tends to be a little, for lack of a better term, a little floppy. But as I get closer to here, you'll see me kind of work toward the edge here, do a little hammer work just to get the edges even as I continue the weld. And as I get closer here, everything moves a little bit, and I'll work a little bit on my gaps. So you notice here, I've got a good gap right to about right here, but then it closes up here. And I'd rather have that than the other way around with too much gap, because as you'll see here in a minute, I'll just come in, open that gap back up, and I'll show you how I do that. First though, a few more welds, a little hammer and a few more welds. not quite enough gap there, so let's work on that. So we'll just take the cutoff wheel and we can go right along the edge here and just slice right through it, open that gap back up. And that puts my gap right back where I want it. Still even. Okay, now I'll work on my tacks on my way down. Give that a minute to cool off and keep working on it. And as I work my way down, I can use my body hammer, or any hammer basically, to try and work this metal into the shape I need it to be. Now my gap right here is a little bit too close, so I'm going to open that up so I can finish moving that metal around. Okay, so as I get to the end of the trunk panel, you notice it's a little bit of a shape difference. It's just old panel versus new panel. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the metal around a little bit, and I'll work this in a little bit. I'll work this out a little bit, and try and get those to match up as close as I can. Sometimes that's just a difference in the way the panels are stamped, but it's all part of it. Okay, it's a little bit more of a gap than I like, but I can work with it. Okay, let's let that cool for a second. I'll hit these with a grinder, see how I did. Probably have to come back, do a little follow-up. It's always going to have a few holes here and there. So, and then I'll work on the other side. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Making good progress on the back half of the car. Next episode, going to finalize the taillight panel, get it installed permanently, and we are well on the way to getting the body of the Firebird back into condition where we can move on to phase 2. So don't want to give too much away, but phase 2 is going to involve a lot of fabrication where I try and merge 2000 Z28 and an LS1 6-speed into a 71 Firebird. So don't want to miss it. Certainly do appreciate everybody watching. A big thank you to everybody. Please like, share, and subscribe. It does help me out. Everyone, have a great day.